Well, back to that breaking news. The state Democratic Party is holding a news conference reacting to the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. Let's listen in.
Purpose of defending the freedoms of Americans and the values of our nation. And once again, Hoosiers are seeing an Indiana Republican Party who is set to ignore the will of voters, more than 80% in this case, to fulfill a partisan strategy that's more reflective of the 1930s than this year, 2022. On behalf of the Indiana Democratic Party, I want to express our sorrow and sadness following the U.S. Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe versus Wade. A 50-year American standard has been stripped away from women of all stripes, colors, and backgrounds. Generations of women, for the first time, will be forced to make dangerous decisions many of us thought we left in history books. And that horrifies me the most. Underprivileged women, especially Black and brown, Hoosiers in urban communities, will see their futures dashed on their lives be put at risk because the nation's highest court backed a small minority over the large majority of Americans who want to keep living up to the foundations and freedoms of the United States. In Indiana, the days now numbered to get a safe and legal abortion. And what scares me the most is the fact that we have a state government who is ready to request that Governor Eric Holcomb call a special session and use taxpayer dollars just to ban this medical procedure in the state of Indiana. It is unclear how extreme the Indiana Republican Party will go, but politicians like U.S. Senator Todd Young and State Representative John Jacob have signed pledges that wish for the state to enact a total ban on abortions, even in the cases of rape, incest, or saving the life of the mother. Should the Republican supermajority go as extreme as many of us believe, they will be fulfilling a national extreme agenda that only 17% of Hoosiers support in this state. I'm turning the mic over to Indianapolis City County Councilor Allie Brown. Before representing Indianapolis, Allie was on the front lines defending a woman's right to safe and legal abortions. She also worked at the AIDS Task Force of Northeast Indiana, where conversations about medical freedoms were heard, bread, and butter. Simply put, Allie knows a thing or two about what could happen to Indiana should the Republican supermajority issue a total ban on abortions across the state of Indiana. You will now hear from Councilor Allie Brown.
Thank you, Mila. Before I start, I just want to say, if you can hear that my voice is shaking, it is not out of sadness or grief, it is out of righteous anger that they would take our rights away. It is not a politician's business to decide if a woman has the right to an abortion. That choice should be left to the pregnant person and their doctor. Republican politicians are infringing on a woman's privacy rights, and the partisanship is simply un-American. It must be said, abortions don't stop just because they are illegal. Banning abortions will no doubt lead to dangerous procedures or for women who cannot afford to travel for safe abortions in another state. Fact, more than 99% of abortions occurred before 14 weeks of pregnancy. Fact, 63.5% of abortions occurred from women who were already mothers. Fact, live births occurred 10 times more than abortions in Indiana. I'll say it again. Republicans are violating a woman's right to privacy if they wish to ban abortion. What happens between my doctor and me is my business, and it's not another politician's. The only politician that belongs in my waiting room, in my doctor's office, is me. And it's important. This is something a lot of people can't comprehend until they have been pregnant. Pregnancy is complicated and it is difficult, and I stand up in front of you as a mom of a 5-year-old boy that I love more than anything in the world. A little boy I hope I get to watch grow up. I got pregnant with my son in difficult circumstances. To say that the pregnancy was easy, yeah, that's just how women hide how hard it is to be pregnant. When I went to the hospital to give birth, they started to induce labor, but during that process, my placenta ripped off inside of my uterus, and they lost the heartbeat for my son. Within 5 minutes, I was rushed to rushed into an emergency room, leaving my husband terrified, standing in the hallway. As they strapped me down, and I had an unmedicated, unsedated C-section. The pain of having my stomach, my body cut open, was only dimmed by the fact that the last thing I heard before the anesthesiologist came into that room and put me under was that my child was blue and not breathing. I then lost consciousness and then stopped breathing myself. I had to be revived on that table with my inside still outside of my body while they also rushed to revive my child. I woke up 4 hours later screaming that I had killed my baby, overwhelmed with grief. My husband couldn't convince me that he was alive because that's what I had heard. Dylan is the light of my life, and I am so grateful to the doctors at Riley and at Methodist who saved his life and mine. But because of this pregnancy, I have learned that I have a condition where I cannot count on the placenta to stay attached. And what that means is no matter how much Dill asks for a brother and sister, I cannot get pregnant again because there's a good chance I could lose my life. I want to be a mom again. I want to give Dill that sibling, but I can't. But now I have to give Dill the best mom that can be here, and that's one that's alive. If I get pregnant, even using contraception, which I was using when I got pregnant with him in the first place, I will have to leave the state to seek an abortion. And I will, because my child deserves a mother who's alive. I will do that. But there are so many women who won't. And I want to know that I come back to the state that I love, a state where 83% of people support my access to abortion. Abortion in the case of incest, in case of life of the mother, in case of rape. People support that access. Knowing that I could come back and become a felon with what these bills that they've been filing, and I cannot tell other women of the struggles that I went through and what they need to know. So I want to ask the Republicans these questions. Do you really want to force women to carry their rapist's child to term? Do you want to force a girl to carry a rapist's child to term? Do they want to tell young girls who've been raped by a family member that their uncle's baby is more important than their life? Do they want to tell women who choose to be mothers, who desperately want more children, that their lives aren't worth anything? Republican politicians, particularly the men, should be careful about how they answer these questions. Because I know, and trust me, because I represent an area that has been represented by only Republicans before me, I know a lot of Republican women. And they are fully in support of a woman's right to choose. When 1 in 4 Hoosier women has had an abortion, that's not 1 in 4 Democratic women. That's all women. I know there are Republican women who do not want to go back to the days where families and children lost their mothers regardless of circumstance, because they chose to have an abortion and it was dangerous. And lastly, my experience before serving on the council taught me one thing. Once abortion goes, so will our access to birth control and contraceptives. And they said as much in today's ruling. The Indiana Republicans' national agenda against abortion isn't about the procedure, but more about control over women. They want to regulate when and how a woman approaches her sexual freedoms, decisions that should be private. Republicans have repeatedly said in the past and in recent history, like in response to a mass shooting like at Uvalde, that they believe a woman's only value is to be a mother and look after their family. You can read the dissent. It says exactly that. If you don't believe me, you can look towards speeches from the recent NRA convention. Look at the words of GOP candidates for an office across the nation. They're all saying the quiet part out loud. Republican politicians are fighting a losing battle. Their values are un-American and do not reflect 2022 United States, Indiana, or here in Indianapolis. And you better believe folks like me will be on the front line doing everything we can to stop their insane national agenda. Thank you. I want to introduce someone who has inspired me and has kept me fighting even in my darkest days. I'd like to introduce Linda Lawson, who at her time at the Indiana General Assembly was not only a leader but the champion for women.
And you just heard from a very emotional mother giving her remarks there at the State Democratic office. You're taking a live look now. We are expecting President Biden to address the nation about that decision from the Supreme Court. And of course, we want to take you back to NBC's special report as they wait for President Biden to address the nation.